Let's take a look at the detailed analysis of chapter 5 of economic survey. This chapter, it deals with the sustainable development, energy and climate change. Okay. So like this analysis, this video session, the topics which are covered in this session are like the overview of the chapter 5, in the sense that all the topics which are given in this chapter 5 we will be discussing in detail the analysis of these things, right? And after this session it will be much easier for you to go through the chapter 5 of economic survey, right? Moreover, like we will be seeing or we will be discussing how you can use these concepts, the concepts of sustainable development, climate change or energy. Now how you can use these concepts in the context of your civil service examination, both from your prelims perspective as well as your mains perspective, right? And later on we will be seeing the important topics which you can expect for your prelims examination. The topics, I mean in the sense the topics which are given in this chapter, right, in the economic survey, there's a chance that they will be asking questions, the UPSC will be asking questions based on these topics, right? So we will be seeing the important topics which you should study for your prelims, right? And later on we will be seeing the previous year questions, the mains as well as prelims, right, which is already asked from related with these topics, so that you, after seeing such questions, you get an idea how UPSC will ask a question related with these topics, both the prelims and the mains, right? And then we will be solving or we will be seeing some mains questions, mains model questions, which is made from this particular chapter, I mean the chapter 5 of economic survey. So this is how this video session will progress. So first of all, let's start with the overview of or the analysis of the chapter 5 of economic survey, right? So to start with the sustainable development, the term sustainable development, it's a very important idea, right? It's a very important term and you should be using this idea in your answers, in the sense that what sustainable development means is that the development which we are achieving, right, it should be achieved by integrating the social aspect, the environmental aspect and the economic aspect. So imagine like we are attaining development by degrading the environment, then such development is meaningless. In this sense, if we attain development by degrading this environment, we are not able to live here, right? Then there is no point in developing this infrastructure or developing this, attaining this development or anything. Plus, the same way, right, imagine the impacts of the development, right, the development which you are attaining, right, the benefits of that is not getting transferred into the society, then again that such development is pointless, right? So the development which we attain by integrating the social aspect, environmental aspect and the economic aspect, and that we call it as sustainable development, the development which can be sustained for the future, right? So the development should be attained by preserving the nature or the environment, and this environment shouldn't be degraded and it should be passed on to the coming future generations, and that's the overall idea behind this sustainable development, right? The Millennium Developmental Goals which we earlier had were built on by keeping these three important dimensions in mind, right? And that resulted in the Sustainable Developmental Goals. I mean we are having 17 sustainable developmental goals, right, which includes poverty, zero hunger, like quality education, gender equality, like that, right? Okay, you can read out the 17 goals from here, and this topic, right, the SDGs, they're both important for your prelims as well as your mains, right? So India is actually trying to include or trying to achieve these goals, right? And from the perspective of India's developmental imperatives, achieving these goals or attaining these goals are of utmost importance, right? India is taking many initiatives to achieve this sustainable developmental goals. In the sense that achieving this or attaining these goals, they are very important from the developmental perspective of India, right? I mean most of these things, these are the most needy thing the government should be doing, and government is taking many initiatives in that direction. One of the noteworthy examples include the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. It is one of the largest financial inclusive project, right? I mean giving the bank account through which the benefit can be transferred to these people, right? So it's one of the largest financially inclusive project. And same way, India volunteered to get reviewed based on how, whether we are achieving these sustainable development goals, right? So like apart from the financially inclusive thing, like we volunteered to get reviewed whether we are achieving these targets, right? And in that perspective, you have to keep in mind India gave more importance to the no poverty, good health and well-being, gender equality, and the industry innovation and infrastructure, the life below water, and the partnerships for goals. So in that voluntary review, we were giving importance to these pointed out the goals, right? So it might be asked like, which were the important, which were the goals which we, which we projected through this voluntary review mechanism, right? Another thing to remember regarding the SDGs, in India's case, as I already said, we volunteered for a review, right? So if you need to volunteer to get reviewed, we should be projecting how much we progressed in achieving these goals, right? So to do that, we should be collecting data and we should be validating them and should be documenting these data so that we can undergo the international review mechanism, right? So in that sense, the Niti Aayog is responsible for collecting the data, the validating it, and documenting the progress, whether India, how much India is progressing in achieving these goals, right? So like India is giving more importance to sustainable developmental goals, and apart from this, right, it's very important that we achieve these goals. Okay, now let's look at the goal number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. So if a city needed to be a sustainable city, right, according to this World Economic and Social Survey, right, if a city needed to be a sustainable city, it should be integrating 4 key pillars, which are the environmental management, the economic development, the social development, and the urban governance. So only if these 4 things come together, then only a sustainable city can be generated, right? And in this perspective, in India's case, we are undergoing rapid urbanization. There are various facts to prove that we are undergoing rapid urbanization. In the sense, the Census 2011, it shows like the urban population in 2013, it will be as much as 600 million, right? And as of now, more than 35% of the entire population is urban population, and plus like the 7 mega cities, right? The 7 mega cities having more than 10 million population will be created in India almost by 2030. So these kind of facts proves that India is undergoing rapid urbanization, and it is very important that while at this stage itself we we create sustainable cities. Otherwise, what happens is that it won't be sustainable for the long term. Okay, so in that perspective, the urban centers in India's case, these urban centers, they show the developmental path. In the sense, the development attained by these urban centers will be spilled over towards the suburban and then to the rural places, right? So the development and the services provided in this urban center, this will be followed by the, this path of development will be followed by the suburban and rural places, right? In that sense, these urban centers, it's very imperative that they attain the sustainable development, right? And as of now, in the urban cities, in India's case, in the urban cities, we are having many issues, many issues starting from poverty, or like increasing slum population, or lack of solid waste management, or like traffic congestion, or like lack of transportation facilities, or safety issues. All of these things, they are prevailing over the urban centers. And if these urban centers, if they need to become sustainable cities, these issues has to be solved. And in that perspective, the government has come out with many initiatives, and one of the major initiatives regarding this aspect, right, the issues prevailing in the urban centers, the program which is called as Smart Cities program, right? So we are now trying to develop smart cities, and this is one of the favorite areas of UPSC. UPSC have already asked a previous year question regarding the smart cities program, right? So the smart city, in the sense, it's a sustainable city, and there is no clear-cut definition for a smart city or anything. It depends on the aspirations of the community lying over in a city, right? So ranging from these waste management, the energy generation, so the city should be sustainable in overall, right? So that's the idea. So there are various other programs including this smart city program like National Urban Housing and Habitat Policy and Municipal Solid Waste. So these kind of initiatives, I mean, they are aspiring to create sustainable cities, right? So if you are writing an answer on the smart cities program, it should be bringing into this perspective, I mean, why it is important for India to attain sustainable cities, because the development which the sustainable cities or the smart cities or the urban centers, the development which they are following will be followed by, that path of development will be followed by the suburban and the rural places, right? So this is very important aspect you have to bring into your mains answers. And if we need to develop this sustainable cities, right, the major challenge which we are having is finance. In the sense, you know, to create the sustainable cities, huge load of infrastructure should be developed. I mean, starting from the road, the sanitation, the waste management things and everything, right? So for this entire infrastructure, we will be needing, say, more than 39 lakh crore according to the economic survey, right? So this huge, I mean, raising this huge financial resource is the biggest challenge or hurdle in creating the sustainable cities, right? So we have to think about solutions to overcome this challenge, the financial challenge. In the sense, one best way to do that is to encourage the urban local bodies, in the sense the local bodies in these cities, to encourage them to find innovative solutions to raise this much amount of financial resources. In that perspective, the economic survey points out the municipal bond which the government came out with as an important example to encourage the urban local bodies to raise this financial resource. The municipal bond, in the sense, this bond can be issued by the municipal authority, and you know, they will get finance, but in return, right, in return they have to maintain the operational efficiency, and plus the financial viability of these projects, right, has to be ensured. If only then, I mean, if only this municipal bond, it can work out. So the challenge in attaining the sustainable development or sustainable cities, not development, the sustainable cities, right? The most important challenge is the finance, and we can overcome this financial challenge by encouraging the urban local bodies to raise finances through various mechanisms, including municipal bond or like the private, private public partnership or such things, right? So this is the overall idea about the sustainable development and the importance of the urban centers. I mean, why the urban centers should attain the sustainable development, right? Or why they should be sustainable cities, right? The next portion of the chapter 5 discusses the energy, right? So the energy, in the sense, this is one of the key enabler of various other things, in the sense maybe if we need to provide good health and well-being, if we need to achieve the third goal of SDG, right? So I mean, achieving this good health and well-being, it's important that we provide access to sustainable energy. Suppose if the people are depending on biomass burning, right? So it will be creating air pollution and will be creating health hazards. So like if we could provide access to clean sources of energy for this population, right, good health and well-being can be ensured. So in that sense, or in that way, the energy is having interlinkages with various other or almost all of the sustainable developmental goals, and it is one of the key enabler to achieve these things, right? So the development which we attained till now was based on the conventional energy sources like the coal or petroleum, like that, right? So this conventional sources of energy, they are in no way they are sustainable. So it is imperative that we provide or we depend or like now we attain the development on the basis of renewable sources of energy, right? So providing access to sustainable energy, reliable here in the sense, say if you are having frequent power outages, the industries cannot develop there, right? So the energy which we are providing, the access which we are providing, it should be reliable, it should be sustainable. then it should be in the sense modern in the sense it should be more efficient, right? I mean, now in the sense, if you are, say, if you are generating electricity, and that electricity, it should be efficiently transported. So in that sense, the access to energy, I mean, not only just the energy, rather than the energy should be sustainable, reliable and modern, and it should be affordable. Affordable in the sense, then only the people will be able to use it, especially in the case of a poor developing nation like India's case. If the energy is not affordable, the mass of the population won't be using it, right? So the energy, it should be affordable, renewable, sustainable, and it should be modern, right? And if you could provide this access to this lot of sustainable energy, then it will act as an enabler to achieve all the other SDGs. I mean, in the economic survey, the relationship between access to energy and gender inequality is being discussed in a detailed manner, right? So this is one area which is important for your mains examination, like how this energy or access to sustainable energy is related with gender equality, right? Imagine this, like if the population is not having access to clean and sustainable source of energy, right? So they are still depending on the fuel wood or the biomass burning or such things. So in most of the rural places, the responsibility of collecting this fuel wood or water or cooking, all of these things, they are vested with the women, right? So in that sense, that responsibility is completely vested with them, right? And imagine this, if we need to, they will be needing to travel lot of distances to to collect this fuel wood or water or any such things, right? So they are losing their time, and with that time, they could get education, or they could part of the income generating thing or any such thing, right? So in that way, what if you could provide access to energy for this population, right? So that responsibility of collecting fuel wood or such things won't be falling on the woman, right? So they will be able to study or get education, and thus be part of this thus they will be able to become an earning member of the family, right? So in that way, we can reduce gender inequality. And another case is that if we are not providing access to clean sources of energy, imagine they are depending on this biomass burning, right? The women and children who are mostly spending their time inside their homes, right? And they will be the ones who are cooking, and what happens is that the air pollution or the respiratory hazards resulted from this biomass burning, the impact of this health hazard will be more prominent for the women, right? So in all these aspects, we can understand that if we could provide access to sustainable and clean sources of energy, their health can be taken care of, education can be given to them, they will be part of the economy, right? So in that sense, it will be beneficial in the sense, the per capita income of the nation, it will increase, right? So this is how the access to sustainable energy and gender equality is related with, how they are both related, right? Same way, with all the, most of other SDG goals can be related back to the access to energy, like as I already said, the good health and well-being, or poverty, or say industry, innovation and infrastructure. All of these things, right? They need access to energy, right? So understanding the importance of providing access to sustainable energy, the government has come out with many initiatives to provide access to energy, right? So various schemes in the sense, first one, the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, right? So it is providing LPG gas connections to these rural population, right? Ujjwala Plus in the sense, it's going beyond the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana in the sense, it's taking donations. Those people who are well off, they will be giving off their connections, and with those donations, the new connections, LPG connections, will be provided to those people who are backward and who are not covered under the socio-economic census or the general category of socio-economic population, right? So Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana and Ujjwala Plus, right? Then Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana. Okay, so this is providing 100% electrification, right? The idea of this scheme is to provide 100% electrification. And Saubhagya scheme, right? The Saubhagya, in the sense, again it's more related with the electrification, but it's going one step ahead in the sense in it's providing last mile connectivity, those regions which are not easily accessible, right? The regions which are not easily accessible, those regions those regions also needed to be linked into the power grid, right? They also need this electrification. So Saubhagya scheme, right? Next one, the Buildings Energy Efficiency Program. So recently the finance ministry, right? They came out with a notification that all of the public buildings which are very old and which consume lot of energy, right? They should be retrofitted with efficient energy systems. And that program we call it as Buildings Energy Efficiency Program. And the government has partnered with a PSU which is called as Energy Efficiency Service Limited, right? So they will be retrofitting the public as well as some private buildings with most energy efficient technologies like LEDs or ACs or such things, right? Now, renewable energy target. In India's case, the renewable energy target has been revised to 175 gigawatts by 2022. Okay, so all of these things can be seen as government initiatives which is trying to provide access to sustainable source of energy, right? So we are having a lot of population which are not having access to basic source of energy, and this problem can be seen as base issue why we are not able to attain sustainable development. So understanding the importance of this access to energy, government has done this much of initiatives, right? So like these you can use as if you are writing an answer regarding the access to energy, or like how we are trying to tackle this problem. Now the renewable energy target, the India's renewable energy target, we are now giving more importance to solar energy, right? There is actually solar revolution itself taking place, and in that perspective we are now seeing that solar tariff, they are coming down, right? So the solar tariff coming down, it's having implications in the sense, first thing, it's providing a favorable market here in India's case, right? More people, this energy will be affordable to the masses of population. But beyond that, it's creating some legal battles in the sense, there's a term called as power purchasement agreement, right? So this is signed between the electricity generator and the DISCOMs, the electricity distributors, right? So by changing the solar tariff, the DISCOMs, they want revisions or negotiations on this PPPA, right? Power purchase agreements. At the same time, the developers, the generators, right? The generators, they don't need any renegotiations. So since the solar tariff, they are falling down, it's creating implications in the sense they will be resulting in legal battles, which will stall the solar market here in India's case, right? Due to this uncertainty in the sector, right, the banks and everything, they won't be willing to invest here in this particular energy sector. So like the falling solar tariff, it's having implications, right? So this case of renegotiation of power purchasement agreements in the economic survey, it's given in a box and it should be read in detail, right? You can expect questions based on that. So the solar tariff. So nowadays the renewable energy, and especially in India's case, the solar energy is attaining more importance, and this can be seen in the case India took an initiative in creating an international intergovernmental alliance based on the solar energy, which is called as International Solar Alliance, right? So this alliance was launched in this Paris Agreement, or in the UN conference on climate change, which was held in 2015 December in Paris, right? The Paris Agreement, you all must have heard about the Paris Agreement, right? The one which is trying to bring all the nations under legally binding agreement, which is trying to protect the world from global warming, right? So the International Solar Alliance, first of all, it's an alliance of solar rich nations which are lying within the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, or in partially in the Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer. So the idea is those nations, those countries who are having the solar resource, they all are coming together to develop this technologies based on solar. Now, why they need to do this? Now, why this alliance was needed? First place, these developed nations, right? The developed nations who attained development through the Industrial Revolution, they depended on the conventional sources of energy like coal and petroleum, and they attained development. And this has resulted, or this has degraded the environment. And through this development, they had better technologies and they were able to invest in research and development, and in that way they could attain more technologies, right, especially in the case of solar. But these technologies, they won't be transferring, the developed nations won't be transferring these technologies to the rest of the developing nations. So thus it was, thus the need of ISA came from this. Okay, so what India did in the UN conference, UNFCCC conference, which was held in 2015. So India rallied all the solar resource nations under the International Solar Alliance, right? So their main aim is to create a collaboration, a research collaboration, and develop technologies and transfer these technologies to all the member nations, right? So this ISA, it's an important topic, and in the previous year, in 2016 prelims examination, UPSC has already asked a question regarding the International Solar Alliance, and in this year the International Solar Alliance, it entered into force, right? It's again in current affair, and you can expect a more detailed question regarding the International Solar Alliance, right? So few statements you need to keep in mind regarding the International Solar Alliance. It's a first international intergovernmental treaty based organization headquartered in India, right? So the headquarters of ISA is in India, in Haryana, Gurugram, right? So it's a first treaty based intergovernmental organization in India's case, and what it is trying to do is actually, as I told you, to create a research collaboration and to have a platform, right, a digital infopedia platform regarding the solar energy and the technologies involved with it, right? So this technology can be transferred to all the member nations, right? So now the ISA is having three important programs. One, scaling solar application for agriculture use. Then affordable finance at scale. Then the scaling solar mini grids. So here scaling, it means taking investments in such things and generating revenue, right? So scaling solar applications for agriculture use. Okay, so like it might be asked, now which are the important programs under the International Solar Alliance, right? So towards the end of the video, we will see the previous question which was asked as part of or asked from the International Solar Alliance, right? So the programs of International Solar Alliance is of importance, and now they are again proposing two more programs which are like a scaling solar rooftop and scaling e-mobility and storage, right? So remember these 5 programs as programs under the International Solar Alliance. Now another two key statements you have to keep in mind regarding the ISA. One, it's having strategic and financial partnerships with the World Bank, the UNDP, the European Investment Bank, and the Climate Parliament, right? This term, Climate Parliament, another Climate Change Alliance, which you can expect a question for your 2018 prelims examination, right? It's an important topic regarding your prelims, because nowadays we are having more organization related, the climate change related organizations. The UPSC tend to ask more questions related with them. In 2017 we had 2 questions, 2016 we had 6 questions coming from climate change. So climate change is a very important topic, right? So this Climate Parliament, they are having strategic and financial partnership with ISA, right? All of these topics, they are related with the climate change too. Now another like a key statement you have to remember, the United Nations and all of its organs, they are ISA's strategic partners, right? So this is all about the International Solar Alliance, and this entered into force, the Solar Alliance entered into force, and that's why this topic is important, and the economic survey is discussing in detail regarding India's take in the International Solar Alliance, right? Now the next one, climate change. Now we all know that how the climate change was created, right? The developed nations through the industrial revolution, by burning the fossil fuels, they started emitting carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide, or you can say carbon emissions, this resulted in greenhouse gas effect and thereby causing global warming, which in turn resulted in climate change, right? So climate change means change in precipitation pattern, change in cloudiness, all such thing can be seen as like the climate change, right? So like it's a very, it's one of the biggest threat of 21st century, right? So if we need to attain sustainable development, we should be solving the issue of climate change. So any development which we are attaining should be resilient to climate change. That's the idea. So that's how the sustainable development and climate change is interlinked. Now, how the climate change and energy, how it is interlinked? Now, if you are using conventional sources of energy, other than, if you are not using renewable, other than that we are using the conventional sources of energy, right? So, by burning the fossil fuels, more carbon dioxide will be emitted, which will result in global warming and climate change, right? So, to solve the problem of climate change, it's important that we use or we provide access to sustainable source of energy or clean energy. Even in the case of SDG goals, right? So the 13th goal is related with climate action, right? So the nations, all the countries should be coming together to solve this issue of climate change, right? Now in India's case, right, we are one of the most vulnerable nations against climate change. We are having a lot of symptoms of climate change taking place in India. For example, right, variations in rainfall patterns, or like the shrinking Himalayan glaciers, or like the temperature wise, the mean average temperature or the annual temperature, the mean annual temperature, right, and the maximum temperature and minimum temperatures. So we are having all of these record for all of these temperatures, and it shows that as an impact of climate change, there are variations in these temperature data, right? In recent years, there are increase in these temperature data, they are showing an increase. So it is acting as a symptom of climate change in India's case, right? Plus, we are witnessing more, heavy rainfall events. For a short span of time, we will be getting a lot of amount of rainfall, right? So this heavy rainfall events, they are also symptoms of climate change. So by considering all these things, right, India is one of the most vulnerable nations for climate change, and by keeping that in mind, the government has taken many initiatives, and they have taken climate change as a serious issue, and nowadays we always try to involve the climate change if you are taking any developmental decisions, right? So in the economic survey, they are listing out the symptoms of the climate change, which I already stated, and they are also pointing out what the government has done, what are the government initiatives. So for your mains examination, this climate change, as I said, it's one of the most important topics, right? Both from the perspective of prelims as well as your mains examination. So we will be seeing the mains previous year questions which are asked from this topic, right? So one model question you have to expect from this area is, what are the symptoms of climate change in India's case, and what the government has done in that regard, right? What are the government initiatives? So this part of the this part of the economic survey, you have to understand the government initiatives which are trying to solve this issue of climate change. So first one, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and India is one of the front runners in the case of the UNFCCC, right? We have taken this nationally determined contributions and the NDCs, right? India is having targets under NDC, and this NDC targets, they are not discussed or they are not given in economic survey, but as a separate topic itself, they demand more importance. So UNFCCC and the India's nationally determined contributions, right? So they are the government initiatives. Then comes the National Action Plan on Climate Change. So as I said, the India is having many targets under the UNFCCC, which we need to attain if we need to mitigate the impact of climate change, right? So domestically, how we can do this? So for that, India came out with National Action Plan on Climate Change. So this is another area from which UPSC has already asked a question. Okay, this National Action Plan on Climate Change, it's having 8 separate missions, right? So one such mission is National Mission for a Green India, and UPSC has already asked the previous question. Based on this, they asked about the objectives of Green India mission, right? So now we are having another 7 more missions under the National Action Plan on Climate Change, and still it's in current affair, and all of these missions has to be studied in detail, right? Their objectives and everything. So you have to go to their website, see their about page, and study the details regarding these national action plans, right? Or you can follow the current affair digest which the Neo IAS is providing, and which will be having these details, right? So the 8 missions of National Action Plan, they are National Solar Mission, National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency, National Mission on Sustainable Development, Sustainable Habitat, Water Mission, and National Mission on Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem, and Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change, right? And last one, the Mission on Sustainable Agriculture. So you can expect a question like which one of the following is not part of National Action Plan on Climate Change, right? So you will be needing to find out the odd one, right? So the next government initiative to solve the issues of climate change, zero effect, zero defects, the policy initiative. This means that zero effect. Okay, here it means, or this term, it means zero effect on environment, right? So the technologies or innovations we are doing, it should be having zero effect on environment. And zero defect, it means more efficient things, right? So more efficient and less impact on the environment. So this is the idea behind zero effect and zero defect policy of government, right? So mainly they are trying to incorporate this policy into this small and medium enterprises. Okay. Then in 2015, the government has set up an Adaptation Fund on climate change. So this can be used for creating climate change resilient infrastructure, or like adapting against climate change and such things. Okay. Then another thing, green debt securities. So this is in current affair. So in recently this SEBI, they came out with this green debt securities. So simply they mean green bond, right? So bond, you all must be knowing what is a bond. So a green bond means this green bond should be used for projects which are which are developing clean technologies, or which are greener here in the sense which are sustainable, which are of the renewable in nature, like the developmental projects which are using renewable sources of energy or such things, right? So the green bond or the green debt securities, right? So that is one of the government initiatives, and now the green bond market in the India's case, they're flourishing, right? Now there are 2 important schemes which are not directly related with the mitigating climate change, rather than they are adapting against climate change. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which is providing irrigation. Okay, so in India's case, as I said, India is one of the most vulnerable nations against climate change, right? So we will be facing frequent drought conditions or frequent dry spells, heat waves kind of thing, right? So it's important that we provide irrigation to land, right? Then only we can provide, or then only we can attain the food security or maintain the food security, right? So in that aspect, the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana can be seen as a government initiative to adapt against the climate change. Similarly, the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, right? So we are witnessing more crop damages. Maybe they will be directly related with climate change in the sense frequent drought or recurrent flooding, or say like an intensified weather event like a cyclone or thunderstorm or hailstorms. So if you are having crop damage, so that will be insured, I mean those things will be insured under the Fasal Bima Yojana, right. So both of these schemes, they are trying to, or they are like adapting against the climate change, right. So these are the things which are discussed in the chapter 5 of economic survey, which is dealing with sustainable development, energy and climate change, right. So the base idea, or how they are, all of these three things, how they are interlinked. If we need to attain sustainable development, we should be having access to clean energy, right, or sustainable energy. And if we need to attain sustainable development, we should be solving the issue of climate change. And this issue of climate change is directly related with the energy, right. So if we could provide access to sustainable clean energy, we should be enabling the, I mean we will be able to achieve this sustainable development goals, and we will be able to adapt and mitigate the climate change, right. So this is how all of these three concepts, they are interlinked. And in regard to your UPSC examination, especially the mains, right, you can use the points which we discussed so far in various GS papers, starting from GS1, GS2 and GS3. So based on syllabus, right, nowadays we are having more syllabus oriented questions. So like in these, based on these syllabus, you can use these concepts, right. From GS1, the poverty and developmental issues. Okay, the sustainable development goal, we know that the poverty or eradicating poverty is the #1 goal, right. So now let's see how the climate change is related with poverty. Like if imagine if you could adapt against climate change, if you could help these population adapt against climate change, so they will not be marginalized. Okay, imagine like if you are having a drought condition, right, which was an impact of climate change. So all those people who lost their occupation, land and cattle, now they are marginalized. So they will be moving on to urban places, right, in search of job and everything, they will be moving on to the urban places. So in that way, they become more vulnerable to climate change, right. So if we could adapt against climate change by providing the access to energy and everything, this issue of poverty can be solved, right. So one dimension of poverty is climate change. So if you are writing, I mean the causes of why India is not able to eradicate poverty completely, or why still poverty exists in India's case. So one dimension should be that of climate change and lack of access to the proper sustainable energy sources, right. Now urbanization, their problems and remedies. As you have seen, the urban centers, right, the urbanization which we are having is rapid urbanization, and these urban cities, they should be made sustainable cities. Otherwise we will be having many other problems, right. So urbanization, their problems and remedies, those part is related with the details which are discussed as part of the chapter 5. Then changes in critical geographical features. This is directly related with the climate change. Maybe like the impacts of climate change, or like the symptoms of climate change. It was asked from GS1 and it was asked from this syllabus part, right. Now the GS2, global groupings and agreements involving India. So the Paris Agreement, International Solar Alliance, I mean you can expect questions based on these things here, right. Then important international institutions, their structure and mandate. Okay, so in that perspective you can expect a question from Paris Agreement or UNFCCC can be asked based on this part of the syllabus, right, GS2. Then the GS3, issues relating to growth. So the growth and the development which we are attaining, it should be sustainable in nature, right. So in that way it's related with the concepts which you are studied. So all these things, I am not saying they are directly coming under these syllabus, but if you are writing an answer based on these syllabus, these issues, the sustainable development, climate change, access to energy, these are major dimensions you have to bring under these, bring under answers if you are writing on these syllabus part, right. Then conservation and environmental degradation, directly related with the climate change. So if you are getting questions based on these syllabus parts, you should be using these points, right? The sustainable development, climate change, and access to energy, right? And further, you can use these dimensions in your essays. So in your essay or in an answer, this environment should be one of the major dimensions you are prioritizing. So like the attaining sustainable development should be of utmost importance, right? So it should be given much importance, and you should have to prioritize that point, right? If you are writing an essay, this environment dimension, right, if it can be fit into that essay, it should be given, right? In the sense, that dimension should be addressed with enough words. Now let's see some of the previous year questions which are asked from all the GS papers which are related with the chapter 5 of economic survey. So the first one right there, GS1 2015. Smart cities in India cannot sustain without smart villages. Discuss this statement in the backdrop of rural-urban integration, right? So this is regarding the urban India and sustainable development. Only if the urban centers, right, if they become sustainable cities, then only then only we will be able to attain sustainable development, right? So the development which is followed by the urban centers, that will be the path of development which will be followed by the rural and suburban places. So this question, the smart cities, right? So as I said, the smart city program is one of the government initiative in that regard, right, to make these cities sustainable. Now again from GS1 year 2004-14, the question is, bring out the relationship between shrinking Himalayan glaciers and the symptoms of climate change in the Indian subcontinent. So in that part, like we have discussed the symptoms of climate change, right, that can be used here, right, like the rainfall events increasing in the annual mean temperature or maximum minimum temperatures, or like variation in rainfall. Such things can be seen as the symptoms, right? See, there are more symptoms of climate change in Indian subcontinent. I haven't mentioned any of those things in this video. I have stick with whatever which is, I have stick with the points which is given in the economic survey, right? Now another question from GS2, the year 2013. Identify the Millennium Developmental Goals that are related to health. Discuss the success of the actions taken by government for achieving the same. So in line with this question, you can expect a question based on sustainable developmental goals. Maybe identify the sustainable development goals that are related to health or climate change, or like the cities or infrastructure or any such things, right? Then another GS3 question 2017. Okay, climate change is a global problem. How India will be affected by climate change? Again, that symptoms we can use it here, right? Now how Himalayan and coastal states of India will be affected by climate change? So this question is also related with the details given in this part of the economic survey. Now another question from smart cities. So this is the second question from smart cities. It came in GS3 to year 2016. What are smart cities? Examine their relevance for urban development in India, right? So that's directly related with the things which we discuss as part of the sustainable cities, right? Will it increase urban-rural difference? Give argument for smart villages, the light of Pura and urban mission, right? So again, they're related with smart cities. Now again, 2015 GS3. To what factors can the recent dramatic fall in equipment cost and tariff of solar energy be attributed? What implications does the trend have for the thermal power producers and related industry? So in line with this question, right, the solar power tariff in India's case, they are coming down. What are their implications for the economy? So any such questions can be expected based on this, right? So some of the very important model questions, which you can answer from this chapter 5 itself. One question, India's sustainable development agenda will be the development path chosen by urban India. Elaborate. Okay. So I am not discussing the answer. The answers were already discussed as part of this video, right? So examine the linkage between access to energy and gender equality. So this should be a 10-mark question. So you have to explain how the access of energy will help us to eradicate or will help us to implement the gender equality, right? And you have to include, or you have to interlink these concepts with the SDGs and everything. Okay. Now another main question: access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy is essential for achieving sustainable developmental goals. Discuss. So the answer for this question is, in the sense, the access to this energy, they're important in the sense they are having deep interlinkages with all the other sustainable developmental goals. So you should take this other sustainable developmental goals and you should link it with how they are related, or you should explain how they are related with the access to energy. Okay, in the sense, we are in the case of gender equality, or like the health and well-being, or poverty. So those kind of things has to be explained in relation with the access to energy, right? Now another question: examine why India should take the challenge of climate change seriously. Bring out the government initiatives in this regard. So the first part, you have to explain the India is more vulnerable to climate change, right? So in that perspective, the Global Climate Change Risk Index 2018, right, it listed India as the 6th most vulnerable nations against climate change. So many reasons are attributed, in the sense we are rain-fed nation and we are having vast coastline, and various disasters are taking place in our region. So because of all these regions, we are one of the nations who are facing the biggest vulnerabilities of climate change. Okay. So write answers for these model questions, and you will get the points to address these questions from the economic survey itself. So when you are writing answer, don't limit yourself to the aspects that are discussed in the economic survey, right? Try to incorporate more aspects or points into your answers to address these questions. So practice answer writing for all of these model questions which I have given here, right? Now regarding your prelims. So regarding prelims, we see two previous questions which are already asked from related with this topic, right? So first one regarding the International Solar Alliance. So we are having a two-statement question, and it actually came in 2016. Okay, the International Solar Alliance was launched at United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2015, which is true. The alliance includes all member countries for United Nations, which is wrong, right? It only includes solar-rich nations. So here answer should come out as 1. Similar manner, right? We will be getting scheme-based question. So this question with reference to Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, consider the following statements, and the two-statement question. So similar manner, the schemes, the alliances and terms which are given in this economic part of in this chapter 5 of economic survey has to be studied in detail, right? So I have listed out important topics for your prelims which are taken from the chapter 5, right? So sustainable developmental goals. We are having 17 sustainable developmental goals. You have to study all of them, right? You have to remember all of them. Then smart cities mission. You have to go to their about page and check out the details given under them, right? Then International Solar Alliance. As I said, it entered in the force recently, and it's a very important topic, and there is a current affair video in our channel regarding the International Solar Alliance. You can check out that, and there we are solving a previous question as well as the model question regarding the International Solar Alliance. And another key term, right, UNFCCC. Now the 2017 was the 25th anniversary of UNFCCC, right? So in this year also, like you can expect a question based on the UNFCCC. Since they didn't ask a question in the previous year, you can expect a question based on UNFCCC for this year's prelims examination or for your mains examination. Okay. Now Paris Agreement, I need not say its importance. It's a very important topic, already been asked once in 2016, and you can expect again questions based on Paris Agreement. Then National Action Plan on Climate Change, another very probable question, right? National Action Plan on Climate Change. So it's having 8 missions. All of the 8 missions has to be kept in mind. Okay. Then Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stove. So this is not any, this is not a frequent alliance which is seen in news or anything. So from the term itself, Global Alliance for clean cook stove, right? So it's providing, it's concerned about providing the cooking fuels. Okay, so go to their about page and check out their details. As I said, the climate change and the organizations related with the climate change, they are one of the most favorite areas of UPSC, right? So they will be asking all the alliances like organizations related with climate change. So in that aspect, two of the most important terms or alliance which are given in this chapter 5, right? Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stove and Climate Parliament. Okay, so make sure you check out the about page of these two alliances. Now, the important schemes which are pointed out in this chapter 5, right? Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, the financial inclusive scheme. Okay, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana and Ujjwala Plus, providing the LPG connections. Now, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gram Jyoti Yojana, like the 100% electrification. Now, Saubhagya scheme, right, providing last mile connectivity and providing complete electrification, right? Then building energy efficiency program, retrofitting the public and private buildings with energy efficient appliances, right? That's building energy efficiency program. Then Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, right, providing irrigation, and Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, providing crop insurance. So these are the important schemes which are discussed in chapter 5. So this chapter 5 of economic survey, it's important both for your prelims as well as mains, right? So prepare the, according to the strategy which I told you right now, make notes based on the details which are given in the economic survey and try to answer the model questions and these important topics for prelims and the important schemes. Make sure you give more importance to these topics when you are revising the schemes and the terms, right? So you will get questions based on these things.